Ibrahim Traore took over as the president of Burkina Faso in September 2022. And since then, he has survived 18 assassination attempts. That is basically an assassination attempt every 60 days. Those are astonishing figures. Why are they so desperate to see him dead? Who are those behind this plot to assassinate him? Why the desperation to kill a man and attempt to kill him once every 60 days? These are unbelievable figures. What is the reason behind this? Do you think there's a reason? Let us go over 6 possible reasons why the West and his enemies will definitely want him dead. Let's find out why. Who is Ibrahim Traore? Ibrahim Traore is a Burkina Faso captain who has served as president of Burkina Faso since September 2022. He came into power through a military coup that ousted his predecessor, Lieutenant Colonel Damiba. Lieutenant Colonel Damiba was also the person that ousted the former democratically elected president of Burkina Faso in January 2022. What was the backdrop for these consecutive coups? There has been a long-standing fight against Islamic jihadists in the north of Burkina Faso for many years. And the military personnel felt that the democratically elected government wasn't doing enough and didn't do enough to combat and stifle the jihadist insurgency in the north. So this was the backdrop that facilitated Lieutenant Colonel Damiba's coup, and it was supported widely and most especially by Ibrahim Traore himself. So Damiba came to power in January 2022. After he came to power, he was ousted by Ibrahim Traore in September 2022. And the reason for that was Ibrahim Traore and his accomplices felt that Lieutenant Colonel Damiba wasn't prioritizing the fight against the insurgents in the north as fervently as he should. He wasn't giving it enough attention and due diligence. So he was ousted in September 2022. And Ibrahim Traore has been the president of Burkina Faso since September 2022 to current date. Ibrahim Traore has survived 18 assassination attempts. This is also an indication that this man has powerful enemies. To facilitate an assassination is not a cheap endeavor. It is a costly endeavor. For this man to be targeted so fervently, so vehemently, he must have made powerful enemies. And we have fingers being pointed at the West, the Western powers, as facilitators of these assassination attempts on Ibrahim Traore. I want to outline 6 possible reasons why the enemies of Ibrahim Traore will be very adamant to see him eliminated and removed from office. One of the things the Western nations do not like is disruption. Burkina Faso is rich in mineral resources, especially gold. They have several gold mines littered across the country. And these gold mines have been controlled by foreign agents, foreign influences for a very long time. And since his rise to power, he has nationalized many of these gold mines. What it simply means is he has revoked the licenses of some of the foreign companies that operate these gold mines, and those who he wasn't successfully able to revoke their license, he has imposed heavy taxes on them, and some have been forcefully taken over by the Burkina Faso government. So he has nationalized the gold mine. Basically, economic nationalism, economic sovereignty. That is very important. Economic sovereignty. That is one of the things he's always preaching. To have Africa have its destiny in its hands and not depend on foreign influence and intervention. Another thing he has also done in that sense is, in the line of economic sovereignty, is the constant criticism of the use of the CFA and the need to consolidate on a Central African currency in the Sahel, or to remove the influence that the CFA, which is a colonial relic, has across Francophone-speaking West Africa. It has a massive influence. So for those who don't understand what I mean, CFA is a currency used a lot in several West African French-speaking countries. And there's a lot of colonial influence from France and colonial exertion that France has on countries and central banks that use the CFA in Africa. So Traoré is against that influence from France and the dependency on the CFA. One other thing he has also done in terms of economic sovereignty is he repaid a large portion of the loans that Burkina Faso has been owing for years and refused to collect extra loans. Because most of the time, when they give you loans, especially from the IMF and some of these bodies, they impose conditions that you have to meet to take the loan. It can be socioeconomic, it can be geopolitical, it can be in terms of some of the values, some of the Western values that are contrary to African morality and values. Some of these things are also part of the fine prints that are introduced when trying to collect some of these foreign aid and loans. So Traoré has been very mindful of foreign interference, mindful about taking loans from foreign powers. Rather, he wants to use the resources available in Burkina Faso to basically enrich and grow the life and condition of his people, not depending on foreign aid. That is the plan of Traoré. One of the biggest chess pieces that is played globally is through the military, especially with Western powers or among Western nations. They play a lot of chess games among themselves in that military strategy. This one holds this military base. You want to have this installation. You want a place where your drone can take off from, and so on and so forth. So since he came into power, Traoré has, given the French military, especially, quit notice to leave his country. He has removed over 400 French special forces from the country. He has told them to leave and they have left. So that in itself is a very big destabilization in the region. It is a massive destabilization. So because when you remove 400 elite combatants in that region, where Western nations have a lot of interest in, because when they have their military personnel there, they are based there, they are able to stage anywhere across the African continent easily, especially in the Sahel region and the West African region, easily. So once you remove those military personnel, remove the military installations in those regions, you have angered the West. You have now destabilized them. You have set their plans back. They have to now recalibrate. They have to now make other plans. So the removal of that military base in that location has actually created a lot of disturbances for the foreign military personnel. It has created a lot of disturbances. And for some people, they will not let it slide. One of the issues Traoré's enemies are having currently with him is his alliance with the anti-Western bloc, such as Russia, the Wagner Group, BRICS. Let's take Russia as an example. Russia is a long-term enemy of the United States and several European countries. Because of the way they operate, they are loggerheads constantly and at always with the US and NATO, basically, which is exemplified by what is currently going on between the war between Russia and Ukraine. Supposedly because Ukraine attempted to join NATO, and basically that is having NATO at their doorstep. That is to show you the resentment and hostility that is present between Russia and NATO. So imagine Traoré having friendly and cordial relationships with Russia. It's not going to sit down well with many of these countries and some of these big-time players in the international space. They will be upset because it threatens the interests. And imagine this. America has military installations in Niger and Mali. They have staging grounds, base, drone, whatever they do there. Now, to have Burkina Faso, which is basically a neighbor to these countries, have that closeness to Russia, it doesn't sit down well with many of these Western nations. That is just how it is. It's basically bringing your enemy to your doorstep. Bringing your enemy to your doorstep. And that is the same reason why Russia attacked Ukraine. It is bringing your enemy to your doorstep. So how would they be, or how would they be happy? They will not be happy. So the relationship between Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, and Russia is a cause for concern for many of the Western nations. Also, the closeness with the Wagner Group. Wagner Group is a mercenary force based in Russia. They have a hand in several incidents and events going on across the world and in Africa. So there has been unconfirmed reports that Burkina Faso has a very good relationship with the Wagner Group. So issues like this is a problem. And in the very complex chess piece, global geopolitical landscape that the world is in, that is always going to be a problem. That is always going to be a problem. Because you don't want your enemy at your doorstep. I'll give you another example. Look at China, look at North Korea, and look at South Korea. South Korea has a very friendly relationship with the US. They have a base around there, either in Japan or in South Korea. I'm not saying, I think they have one in Japan. But they have a very good relationship with the US. What separates South Korea stroke the US and China is North Korea. So if you are China, would you allow North Korea to fall easily? You would not. That is how geopolitical landscape, that's how this game is played worldwide. You don't let your enemy come to your doorstep. You have to fight. You have to use somebody as a middle ground to come as a buffer between you and your enemy. And like I said earlier, that is why when Ukraine wanted to join NATO, which Russia is against, basically meaning that NATO is at their doorstep, they revolted. They began to fight. Now, America has military installations in Niger and Mali. And you say you want to have a good relationship with Russia and the Wagner Group in Burkina Faso, which are basically neighbors with Niger and Mali, where America has interest. How would many of these countries perceive it as? Not just only America. I'm using America as a euphemism for the Western bloc. How would they perceive this as? Think about it. Victor Hugo once said, "Nothing is stronger than an idea whose time has come." And the idea of Ibrahim Traore is very strong right now. And it is dangerous, and it is dangerous for Africa. And who is it dangerous for? It is dangerous for those who want the status quo to remain. The average age in Africa is 19 years. 19 years. Africa is a youthful continent. And this youth is completely and utterly opposed to the older generation of African politicking and politicians. Because the model that the older generation has constantly employed in Africa hasn't worked. So the idea of Ibrahim Traore, a young man in his 30s, a young, vibrant man who most of the youths in Africa see a sense of them, who they can relate to, is a dangerous thing. And if remain unchecked, it will sweep across Africa. Nothing is stronger than an idea whose time has come. If you think about this statement critically, you understand that there is no time in Africa's history where the idea of cultural revolution is stronger than it is now. There is no time in Africa's history where the idea of political revolution is stronger than it is now. Nothing is stronger than an idea whose time has come. The Western nations want the status quo in Africa to remain. Because once the status quo in Africa remains, the supply chain all over the world is constant. There's economic stability. The global wealth machine will continue to turn easily and freely without any interference from stubborn radicals like Ibrahim Traore. So, thinking about that, how can it be left to be? How can a man whose idea is so powerful, who has embodied the idea of Thomas Sankara? That is why an idea is dangerous. An idea is very, very dangerous. Traore constantly embodies Thomas Sankara's ideals. vision. He keeps on echoing Thomas Sankara. Thomas Sankara has been dead for over 30 years. But now, this man has also risen again to embody the idea of a late Thomas Sankara. Now you have somebody who is embodying the ideals of the past and modifying it to suit the needs of the present. If he is not eliminated and removed, his ideas will catch like wildfire. And that is the fact. One of the things Traoré is doing that is also a thorn in the side of his enemies is basically the rewiring of the African idea, the African mind, the idea that you as an African, you are born, you are powerful. You don't need external influence to validate your sovereignty, to validate your birthright, to validate who you are. That we as Africans can develop systems that can work for us, not necessarily embodying the systems that have worked for the Westerners. And that is a powerful thing, because before colonization, we had a system, we had governance, we had a people, we had a way of life, we had a language. And all these things are being eroded on a daily basis constantly. So it is this rewiring, this reminder of who you are as an African, that you are powerful, you are unique, you are bold, you are courageous. A lot of people who do not want the African mindset, the awakening of the African mind, will definitely not be happy with it. Will definitely not be happy. There are no two ways about it. Even if you look at Traoré's appearance, his presentation, his speech, I read that he speaks in very plain French, plain language. It's not verbose. It's not filled with unnecessary grammar and vocabulary to sound greater than. But it's this sense of speaking in contentment, using what you have to pass a message. His appearance also elicits somebody who is plain and simple. One of the things that has been a pet peeve of mine over the years is seeing African leaders wear suits on the international stage. There is nothing more foolish than that. An African leader wearing a suit globally. What an idiot. And that's why that is one of the reasons why I appreciate the Nigerian leadership. It is not done in Nigeria. If you go back, you rewind time, Olusegun Obasanjo, since the time of democracy, Olusegun Obasanjo, he was always on his native ways. We went to a man called Musa Yar'Adua on his native ways. Rest in peace to him. We went to Goodluck Jonathan on his native ways. We went to Buhari on native ways. We are in Tinubu currently, he's always on native ways. If you go to the Nigerian Senate, they are all on native ways. That is something that I respect, despite all their flaws. Despite the flaws, that is something you have to congratulate the Nigerian leadership on. I see some African countries, they go on international stage, foreign stage, they are wearing a suit. Come on. What an embarrassment. What an embarrassment. It is the understanding of who you are as an African that Traoré is always trying to emphasize. And it is this constant reminder that will plant a seed in someone's mind, plant another seed in another person's mind until it becomes a full-blown forest. Because the idea and the ideals that he's espousing right now are seeds planted by Thomas Sankara in his mind over 30 years ago. He wasn't even alive when Thomas Sankara was president. That is Ibrahim Traore himself. He wasn't alive. But now see how the ideas has germinated in his mind. If you are somebody who understands, who has foresight, you have to recognize that this is a danger for those who do not want to see the great awakening of Africa. And he Ibrahim Traore, must be eliminated for that reason. Another issue Traore's enemies have with him is the creation of AES, which is a military and political bloc created between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. And it is important to note that these three countries are all under military rule. There was a coup that was carried out in these countries many years ago, 2020, 2022, and 2023. So they created this alliance to safeguard their interests because they are all military powers, basically. And one of the things they did also was to shun ECOWAS. Because when the last coup happened in Niger, ECOWAS threatened an invasion of Niger. And in many ways, that was seen as an insult for ECOWAS to threaten to interfere in the affairs of a country, an independent nation. So that was one of the things that facilitated the creation of AES and other issues. And during that incident, Burkina Faso and Mali promised to come to the aid of Niger if ECOWAS launched an attack on it. So this other military bloc being created in the Sahel West African region is also a destabilizing factor. It is basically throwing a spanner in the wheel. This is something that is creating enemies, both foreign and domestic. There is anger within Africa. There is anger globally because this alliance, especially because the three countries are military, they are controlled by a military rule. This alliance feels unpredictable. And globally, people like predictability. They like sustenance. They like things that are moving in a certain manner. When things seem unpredictable, confusion reigns. So that is one of the reasons why Traoré's enemies are all out to get him. Because at the end of the day, he's one of the leaders, if not the leaders, of this alliance. The issue with Burkina Faso, Traoré, assassination, the West, Africa, AU, ECOWAS is very robust. And it's not something one video can do justice to. But I just wanted to do this video to shed some light on some of the factors, some of the things that is an issue and why this man is being targeted and made and villainized in this manner. If you found it educating, if you found it helpful, if you have found it insightful, please give me a like, share, and subscribe. And I'll catch you in the next one. I have more videos coming up on this. Thank you.